The drama opens in a chaotic classroom where most students are either sleeping, chatting, or outright ignoring the teacher. The mathematics teacher drones on, seemingly indifferent to the lack of discipline, while only one student, Yoon Ga-min, diligently takes notes. At first glance, one might assume he is the brightest student in the class, but the truth is far from it. Despite his relentless dedication to studying, Ga-min has always struggled academically. Determined to improve, he has spent years attending online classes, studying independently, and even hiring private tutors. Yet no matter how hard he tries, his grades remain disappointingly low. One day, he overhears students talking about Yusung Technical High School, claiming it's the best place to prepare for college entrance exams. Without hesitation, he transfers there, believing it to be his golden opportunity. However, his expectations are shattered the moment he steps into Yusung Technical High. The school is a breeding ground for delinquents, a place where bullying runs uncontrolled, and teachers have long given up on maintaining order. Students openly disregard the dress code, smoke on school grounds, and engage in fights with little to no consequences. Ga-min realizes too late that he has been completely misinformed. This school is not a place of academic excellence but a living hell. Despite the lawlessness surrounding him, Ga-min refuses to abandon his goal. He decides to form a study group and approaches Kim Se-hyun, one of the more sensible-looking students in class. Before Se-hyun can even respond, a fight erupts. One of the students brutally beats Se-hyun in front of everyone, reinforcing the harsh reality of the school's underground ranking system. Here, students must physically fight their way up the ranking. The higher one's rank, the more respect they command. The fight is eventually broken up by the discipline chief, who introduces the new temporary teacher, Lee Hang-kyung. As expected, the students show her no respect, barely acknowledging her presence. While she takes attendance, another fight breaks out, shocking her with the sheer level of indiscipline in the school. Later, during a break, Miss Lee and Ga-min reunite. It turns out that she was once his private tutor. Ga-min worries that she won't last long in a school like Yusong, but she reassures him that she has no intention of quitting. Encouraged by her words, he shares his plan to improve his academics through a study group. For days, Ga-min persistently follows Se-hyun, trying to convince him to join. Se-hyun, however, refuses, warning Ga-min that he has no idea what he's getting himself into. He reveals that Yusong is unofficially ruled by Pi Han-yu, the son of a powerful mafia leader. Pi Han-yu controls the school's ranking system and is also its top student. No one dares to cross him, and Se-hyun wants nothing to do with any trouble that might put him in Pi Han-yu's path. Meanwhile, Miss Lee attempts to address the school's dense smoking problem, but her concerns are dismissed by the indifferent principal. Things take a turn for the worse when Se-hyun accidentally bumps into a notorious class bully, Hyun-woo. The bully uses the opportunity to beat Se-hyun senseless while the other students watch passively. Miss Lee Han-kyung tries to intervene, but Ga-min stops her. He has another plan. Later that day, he dons a mask, grabs a fire extinguisher, and creates a distraction before rescuing Se-hyun from the bullies. Instead of being grateful, Se-hyun is furious. Ga-min's intervention has only made things worse. Now the bullies will come after him with even more vengeance. His prediction comes true almost immediately, as the same bully soon confronts Se-hyun, demanding to know the identity of the masked rescuer. Before Se-hyun can answer, Ga-min steps in and knocks the bully out cold. His raw strength shocks the bully. Se-hyun, still hesitant, questions Ga-min. Why does someone as strong as him need to hide behind a mask? Outside of school, Se-hyun's life is just as difficult. His father, an abusive alcoholic, wants him to drop out and train as a welder instead of pursuing an education. He goes as far as forcing Se-hyun to throw out all his study materials. In contrast, Ga-min has a supportive mother, but his self-esteem suffers due to his consistently poor grades. Despite his academic struggles, he remains determined to succeed. He has been training his body just as much as his mind, believing that if he can't be the smartest, he must at least be strong enough to survive in a school like Yusung. The school's dysfunction becomes even more apparent when the principal orders the discipline chief to clean up the smoking areas before an upcoming inspector visit. Miss Lee and a new student, Jeon Yop, are roped into helping. Jeon Yop questions why they are hiding the truth instead of allowing the inspector to see the reality of the school, but Han-kyung explains that she isn't in a position to change things just yet. Back in the classroom, Se-hyun surprises Ga-min by secretly gifting him one of his old, detailed notebooks. It's a small but meaningful gesture, showing that he acknowledges Ga-min's dedication. However, their moment is short-lived as the same bully from earlier, Hyun-woo, figures out that Ga-min was the masked vigilante who saved Se-hyun. Wanting to provoke him, Hyun-woo picks a fight, escalating it by snatching the gifted notebook and setting it on fire. As Ga-min watches the notebook burn, something inside him snaps. He launches himself at Hyun-woo, beating him relentlessly. Hyun-woo, unable to fight back, eventually collapses. Still raging, Ga-min demands that he apologize to Se-hyun, but the unconscious Hyun-woo is in no condition to respond. The sheer intensity of Ga-min's reaction stuns Se-hyun. For the first time, he sees how much studying truly means to Ga-min. It isn't just about grades, it's about proving to himself that he is capable, that he can achieve his dream no matter how much the odds are stacked against him. Moved by Ga-min's passion, Seon finally agrees to join the study group. This marks the first victory in Ga-min's uphill battle to turn his dreams into reality. However, in a school ruled by violence, his challenges are far from over. With fists flying and tensions rising, Ga-min's fight for both knowledge and survival is only just beginning. Han Kyung rushes into the classroom after hearing the noise. She finds a burning bag, Hyunwoo unconscious on the floor, and Ga-min standing over him. She quickly puts out the fire just as the school inspector and the principal arrive. They see the mess and assume Ga-min is responsible. Without listening to his explanations, they take him to the office. As Ga-min waits for the inspector and principal to decide his fate, Sehon sneaks into the room. He thanks Ga-min for saving him, but warns him that things are about to get worse. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo is dragged to the rooftop by Pai Hanu, the most feared student in the school. Hyunwoo isn't pleased that Hyunwoo lost so easily, and decides to punish him in his own way. Back in the principal's office, the principal pushes to expel Ga-min, but before the decision is final, Miss Lee steps in. She argues that Ga-min was defending himself, and that it's unfair to punish him while ignoring the school's deeper problems. In front of the inspector, she openly criticizes the principal, embarrassing him. The inspector suddenly recognizes Lee Han-kyung. He remembers that she was last year's top scorer in the teacher recruitment exam, but didn't officially register, which led to her disqualification. Intrigued by her passion, he gives her a chance to make a difference. Han Kyung proposes starting a study group, and the inspector supports the idea, putting pressure on the principal to allow it. However, the principal reluctantly agrees under one condition: they must gather at least 5 members within 2 weeks for the study group to be officially recognized. The next morning, Ga-min secretly works out before heading to school. He and Sehyeon start looking for students to join their study group, but it's harder than they expected. The principal, still upset about Han Kyung's defiance, wants the idea to fail. Later, Miss Lee Han Kyung meets with Ga-min and Sehyeon to discuss recruitment strategies, but they quickly realize that the rumors about Ga-min's fight with Hyunwoo are making things worse. Many students believe Ga-min is some kind of legendary fighter who forces people to join his study group. This makes recruiting members even harder. Most students stay away, not wanting to get on Pai Hanui's bad side. Ga-min and Sehyeon post recruitment notices around the school, but 2 days pass without a single registration. Meanwhile, a student ranked 3rd in fighting within their grade doubts the rumors about Ga-min. Curious, he challenges Ga-min to a fight, but Ga-min, mistaking his intentions, warmly welcomes him and turns away to get an application form. Later, Ga-min spots Gyeon Yob, a former middle school classmate who once studied in the US. He eagerly invites him to join the study group, thinking he would be a great addition. However, Gyeon Yob refuses and mocks Ga-min, pointing out how his attempts to form the group are only bringing trouble to those around him. As days pass, Ga-min and Sehyeon grow discouraged. Han Kyung, noticing their struggles, decides to cheer them up. She takes them to a bookstore, buys them study supplies, and treats them to food. They share a light-hearted moment, giving them a brief escape from their worries. Ga-min even explains how different colored pens help with studying, showing his dedication despite his poor grades. As they leave, Ga-min accidentally leaves one of his books in Han Kyung's bag. Meanwhile, Han Kyung returns to her dormitory, only to find that Hyunwoo and his gang have broken in. Hyunwoo tells her she has made dangerous enemies and that someone powerful wants her gone. Before she can react, her phone rings. It's Ga-min. Hyunwoo knocks it out of her hand, preventing her from answering. Just as Hyunwoo is about to attack, Jeon Yeb unexpectedly arrives. He helps Han Kyung escape and they hide in the parking lot. However, they are soon found, and Han Kyung gets struck while trying to reason with Hyunwoo. Jeon Yeb fights back, but is outnumbered. Suddenly, Ga-min shows up. Without hesitation, he takes on the entire gang. His fighting skills are beyond anything they've seen before. Realizing they can't win, the gang starts to flee. But Hyunwoo, desperate to regain control, attempts to stab Ga-min. Ga-min Yob steps in just in time to stop him. Enraged, Hyunwoo taunts Ga-min Yob about his mother's death, causing Ga-min Yob to snap. He attacks Hyunwoo, demanding answers. Before things escalate further, Ga-min stops him. In the heat of the moment, Ga-yeon-yob reveals that Pai Han-woo might have had something to do with his mother's death. Before leaving, he warns Han Kyung to be careful. No one can stand against Pai Han-woo and win. After the incident, Han Kyung returns Ga-min's book to him. She contemplates calling the police but hesitates. Later that night, one of Hae Yeon-woo's gang members knocks on her door. He apologizes, explaining that they were forced into attacking her and had no choice. The next day, Ga-min and Sehyeon continue to struggle with recruiting members. No one dares to join the study group. Just as they are about to give up, a girl unexpectedly submits an application. To their surprise, they realize that Yusung Technical High School isn't just for boys, it's a co-ed school. With their first new applicant, Ga-min's study group finally has a glimmer of hope. But in a school controlled by violence, their fight for knowledge is far from over. Han Kyung, curious about the school's underground power structure, starts asking questions about Pai Han-woo, the most feared student talent at Yuswong Technical. However, she is warned to stop looking into him, as even asking about him could put her life in danger. Surprisingly, Pai Hanun himself appears before her, making it clear that she should stay out of his business. Meanwhile, Ga-min and Sehun try to find out who Ji-woo is and why she wants to join the study group. They soon learn that Ji-woo is actually Haeon-woo's twin sister. However, she never applied to join. The application was submitted by her best friend, Hee-won, who wanted to protect her from bullies. Ji-woo is being tormented by Gyu-jin, a student who holds a video of Hyun-woo robbing a store. Gyu-jin has been using this video to blackmail Ji-woo, making her do whatever he wants. Worse, Hyun-woo had no idea that Gyu-jin was the one who robbed him first and then tricked him into taking a loan, setting him up for disaster. After spotting Ji-woo being bullied by Gyu-jin and his girlfriend, Ga-min steps in to stop them. Hee-won begs him to help Ji-woo, promising that she will join the study group if her tormentors are dealt with. Ga-min realizes that to help Ji-woo he has to face the disciplinary committee, a group that operates like a mafia within the school. Sehun warns him that taking on the committee is like signing his own death sentence, but Ga-min is determined. Ga-min sneaks into the disciplinary committee's office, searching for the blackmail video. However, he isn't the only one looking for it. Two other students are already inside. Before they can find anything, Ju-jin arrives and beats them up. Realizing Ju-jin is about to upload the video online, Ga-min comes out of hiding and fights him. He tricks Ju-jin into thinking he is weaker and takes several hits before snatching the USB drive containing the video. Once he has it, Ga-min overpowers Ju-jin and prepares to leave. Unfortunately, before he can escape, the rest of the disciplinary committee arrives and another brutal fight begins. As Ga-min struggles against multiple opponents, Sehun and Hee-won try to think of a way to help. Meanwhile, Ji-woo overhears their conversation and is furious that no one told her what was happening. She has been staying quiet for her brother's sake, but she is done playing the victim. At the same time, Miss Lee meets with Pai Han-woo and tries to convince him to let Hyun-woo go. Pai Han-woo, as expected, refuses to accept any blame. He warns Miss Lee to back off, but she refuses, surprising him with her determination. Back at the disciplinary committee's office, Gyujin realizes that even if Ga-min has the USB, the video is already saved on his hard drive. He moves to upload it online. Seeing this, Ga-min grabs the entire hard drive and starts running. Hee-hun and Hee-on follow closely behind, wondering what his plan is. Gyujin and his gang chase after them. In the chaos, Ga-min trips on a loose wire and the hard drive lands at Sehun's feet. Sehun quickly grabs it and runs to the rooftop. He throws it off the edge, completely destroying it. Just as Gyujin is about to retaliate, Ji-woo arrives and delivers a powerful punch, shocking everyone. She has had enough of being pushed around. Meanwhile, Ga-min accidentally drops the USB and Hee-won tries to grab it. However, Mihi, one of Ji-woo's bullies, gets to it first. This time, Hee-won refuses to be intimidated and fights back, successfully retrieving the USB. Their victory is short-lived. Hyun-woo, after being manipulated by Pai Han-woo, arrives with a knife. Pai Han-woo had convinced him that Gyujin was the source of all his problems and encouraged him to take revenge. Hyun-woo, overwhelmed with rage and confusion, prepares to stab Gyujin, but before he can, Han Kong steps in and gets stabbed instead. As she collapses, she promises to help Hyun-woo, urging him not to go down a dark path. The students watch in shock as Han Kyung falls. Ga-min rushes to her side and immediately takes her to the hospital. After her surgery, she recovers, but she will need time to heal. Meanwhile, Ji-woo and Hee-won officially join the study group, but Ji-woo struggles with guilt over her brother's actions. She has always relied on him, and seeing him in this situation is painful. The next day, Ga-min gathers the study group for their first official meeting. He is excited to finally take the first real step toward his goal. Meanwhile, the police bring Pai Han-woo in for questioning, but he is released almost immediately, showing just how much influence he has. Just when things seem to settle down, a new problem arises. Tae-oh, one of the school's top fighters, declares war on Ga-min after hearing about his fights. Ga-min isn't interested in fighting, but Tae-oh's gang takes it too far. They target Lee-jun, a student who wanted to join the study group. Tae-oh rips up Lee-jun's application letter in front of Ga-min, humiliating him. Ga-min, unable to stand by and do nothing, makes a bold move. Without hesitation, he jumps out of the classroom's third-floor window and lands directly in front of Tae-oh. Before Tae-oh can react, Ga-min delivers a knockout punch, sending a clear message. He may be fighting for knowledge, but he won't back down from a fight. LD, an elderly friend, had protected him from bullies, and Lee-jun wanted to return the favor. However, that same friend later joined a gang and pushed him away, leaving Lee-jun feeling lost. Determined to get stronger, he enrolled at Yusung Technical High School, constantly getting into fights. Despite his efforts, he continued to lose, stuck in the same low rank no matter how much he trained. He fought over and over again, never backing down, but always falling short of victory. Still, he refused to give up and worked tirelessly to improve, hoping that one day he would finally become strong enough to win. After witnessing Ga-min's strength firsthand, Lee-jun becomes determined to join his study group, thinking that training with Ga-min will help him become a better fighter. However, Ga-min refuses, saying that the study group is for academics, not brawling. Seeing Lee Jun's persistence, Ga-min gives him a math problem and tells him that if he solves it correctly, he can join. Wanting to prove himself, Lee Jun takes the test while the others visit Miss Lee Han-kyung in the hospital. As Lee Jun focuses on his test, a stranger approaches him and asks if he is Ga-min. Seeing an opportunity, Lee Jun lies and says that he is. The man Jang Ho takes him away, telling him that if he passes a test for the Yeonbaek gang, he will be rewarded with a car. Excited, Lee Jun follows him to a secluded warehouse where he is given a challenge: defeat the gang's 3 newest recruits and retrieve a key from a locked car. If he wins, he joins the gang and earns numerous privileges. Lee Jun eagerly accepts, hoping this will be his chance to prove himself. However, despite his efforts, he is easily defeated. Realizing that Lee Jun is not actually Ga-min, Jang Ho decides to punish him. Meanwhile, Ga-min and the group return to school and find Lee Jun missing. They check his test and see that he did well, making them wonder where he could have gone. Jang Ho arrives and informs them that Lee Jun was taken by the gang. Wasting no time, Ga-min, Jeonyob and Jiwoo rush to the warehouse to save Lee Jun, while Sehon and Heewon head to the police station to report the kidnapping. When Ga-min arrives, he sees Jang Ho beating Lee Jun for lying about his identity. Seeing Lee Jun in danger, Ga-min steps forward and challenges Jang Ho. The fight is intense and Ga-min pretends to be struggling, tricking Jang Ho into letting his guard down. At the perfect moment, Ga-min strikes back, defeating Jang Ho with ease. As this is happening, Detective Taeman starts to grow suspicious of the corruption in the police station. He questions why Pi Han-hun was released so quickly without an interrogation, but his superior warns him not to dig too deep. He also worries about Miss Han-kyung's safety, knowing that she may be in serious trouble. After Hee-hun and Se-hun report the situation, the police arrive to arrest Jang Ho and his men. Detective Taeman gives the students his contact information and tells them to call him if they get into trouble again. Meanwhile, Gwon-yob chases after one of the gang members who had mentioned something about his mother's death. With the danger momentarily past, the study group sets up a messaging group and officially welcomes Lee Jun. Over the next few days, they start their study sessions, supporting each other in both academics and personal struggles. Miss Lee eventually recovers and returns to school. She confronts the principal about Pi Han-yu's influence and submits an official report. However, the principal dismisses her concerns, unwilling to take action. Wanting to expose the truth, Miss Lee arranges for the study group to visit an elite school in Seoul. She hopes this trip will inspire them and show them what a real academic environment looks like. The students, excited about the opportunity, prepare for the trip, putting on their best clothes and meeting early in the morning. However, just as they are about to leave, Ga-min is running late, and Jiwoo accidentally sends him the wrong school name. Meanwhile, Pi Han-du continues to plan his next move, wanting to stir up even more chaos. As the study group departs, Ga-min heads in the wrong direction, completely unaware that he is walking into a school filled with delinquents instead of the elite institution they were supposed to visit. At the elite school, the study group is immediately looked down for a fight. Instead of panicking, Ga-min stays calm, analyzing his opponents. They try to intimidate him, but he remains unfazed. When one of them throws a punch, Ga-min dodges effortlessly and counters with a precise strike, knocking his attacker down in one hit. The others hesitate, realizing that they have severely underestimated him. Back at the elite school, the study group attempts to blend in and observe how the students operate. However, they soon realize that academic pressure at the elite school is just as intense as the violence at Yusung Technical. The students are expected to perform at extremely high levels, and those who fall behind are treated harshly. The study group begins to understand that every school has its own struggles, and they start to appreciate their own unique strengths. Meanwhile, Ga-min continues to handle the delinquents effortlessly. One of them, impressed by his skills, asks him if he wants to join their gang. Ga-min refuses, making it clear that he has no interest in getting involved with them. The delinquents respect his strength and let him go, allowing him to finally realize his mistake and head toward the correct school. As the day ends, the study group regroups and discusses their experiences. Ms. Lee encourages them to apply what they have learned and continue working hard. Ga-min finally arrives at the correct school, exhausted but unharmed. The group laughs at his misadventure, relieved that he is safe. Meanwhile, Pi Han-eu and his right-hand man Min Hwan are punishing Kang Dong-su's gang for failing them. Pi Han-eu is preparing for the future, aiming to take over his father's business when the time comes. He has big plans and every move he makes is carefully calculated. He makes it clear that failure is not an option, reinforcing his authority through violence. Back at their old school, Jun-min had been a top student and had refused to let Ga-min into his study group. Now he sees Ga-min's determination and encourages him to keep pushing forward. His words move Ga-min, making him more determined than ever. Miss Lee speaks with Woo Yeol, a teacher at Manil High, and tells him she is staying at Yusung Technical High because there is something she must accomplish there. She knows the challenges ahead, but she refuses to back down. The study group returns to Yusung Technical High and is surprised to see the principal has assigned them an old filthy classroom for their club. Despite the state of the room, Ga-min's enthusiasm inspires them to clean it up and make it their own. Just as they finish, another bully, Ho-min, shows up to mock them. However, they ignore him, refusing to take his bait. Miss Lee, meanwhile, meets with the deputy principal and proposes holding a disciplinary meeting to discuss Pai Hanu's punishment. The deputy principal, unwilling to go against Pai Hanu's influence, challenges Miss Lee to prove the study group's worth by raising their grades by 10 points. If she succeeds, he will consider her request. Lee Jun overhears the conversation and is stunned by the high expectations placed on them. Miss Lee later shows the study group their placement rankings. As expected, Ga-min is near the bottom, ranking second to last. Still, he remains determined to improve. On their way home, Lee Jun tells the group about Miss Lee's conversation with the deputy principal, making them feel the weight of the challenge ahead. Sehun suddenly receives a message and his expression changes. Without explanation, he rushes off. Seon's father had ordered him to come to the construction site after school. His father had always discouraged him from studying. A flashback shows a young Seon running home, excited to share his good exam results with his parents. However, he arrived to find them arguing, with debt collectors banging on their door. His father had been furious that his mother had taken out a loan, leading to more financial trouble. Now, as Sehun heads to the construction site, he runs into Hee-won. She encourages him, reminding him how impressive he is. However, as they walk, they cross paths with Ho-min and his gang. Ho-min starts another fight, targeting Sehun and Hee-won. Just as things get worse, Ga-min arrives and steps in to defend his friends. Seon, however, feels frustrated. He hates that he has to rely on Ga-min's help yet again. Later that evening, Seon returns home, only to be greeted by his furious father. Another beating follows, but this time Seon doesn't just take it, he stands his ground and walks out. As he steps outside, he finds Ga-min waiting for him. Ga-min offers him a place to stay, but Sehyun refuses. He appreciates Ga-min's kindness, but he wants to prove he can fight his own battles. He doesn't want to feel weak anymore. Ga-min takes a taxi home, deep in thought about Sehun's words. That night, Sehun goes for a walk to clear his mind, and unexpectedly crosses paths with Ho-min again. This time, Sehun doesn't have Ga-min by his side. Ga-min, however, had sensed something was wrong and calls Sehun, guiding him on how to dodge punches over the phone. As Sehun follows Ga-min's advice, his confidence grows. But suddenly, Ga-min's phone battery dies, leaving Sehun completely on his own. With no choice but to fight for himself, he takes a deep breath and stands his ground. To his surprise, he lands a powerful punch, knocking Ho-min out. It is his first real victory, and for the first time, he feels strong. Meanwhile, Pai Han-woo meets with his father, who scolds him for failing to control the school properly. Pai Han-woo is determined to prove himself, setting his sights on eliminating anyone who dares to stand against him. He sees the study group's growing influence as a threat, and orders his followers to ensure they don't succeed. That night, Ga-min walks Sehun home, but his mother is already waiting for him downstairs, arms crossed. She reminds him of the house rule: he must be home by 10 p.m. every night. She has never cared about his grades, but she refuses to let him become violent. Sehun assumes Ga-min's mom is bluffing about making him transfer schools, but Ga-min knows better. His mother always follows through with her decisions. When she divorced his father and cut ties with her brother, she didn't hesitate. The next morning, she goes straight to the principal's office to discuss the transfer process. Sehun and the rest of the study group watch anxiously. Because of Ga-min's poor grades, they believe it won't be easy for him to transfer. However, his mother is already making plans to relocate to Seoul if no local school will accept him. This sends the group into a panic. They desperately try to buy time so Miss Lee can persuade Ga-min's mom to change her mind. In their desperation, one of them even makes up a ridiculous lie, claiming she is pregnant with Ga-min's child, but his mother is unmoved. She walks away, taking Ga-min with her. Miss Lee arrives just as Ga-min and his mother leave. Without hesitation, she tells the students to get in the car and speeds after them. Just as they are about to catch up, a group of motorcyclists appears, blocking the road. These bikers are led by a rival Ga-min. Once defeated, they are determined to stop him from leaving. If Ga-min transfers, the rival student will become the top-ranked fighter in their year. The students jumped out of the car to fight off the bikers. Lee Jun and Ji-woo take charge, knocking down several attackers. Lee Jun tells the others to keep going while he stays behind to hold off the bikers. Seizing the moment, Miss Lee speeds forward, knocking over the motorcycle and clearing the path. Meanwhile, Ga-min's mother is at a real estate office, preparing to sell their house. She is finalizing the paperwork when Miss Lee and the students burst in. Miss Lee makes a heartfelt plea, telling her that Ga-min has changed. He formed the study group on his own and is improving every day. Seeing the hopeful expressions on their faces, Ga-min's mother feels a pang of guilt. She realizes that she has never had expectations for her son, and maybe that hurt him more than she thought. Just as she is about to reconsider, the door bursts open. A group of thugs wielding weapons storm in. They are led by Min Hwan, an associate of Pi Han-yul. They were sent to attack Miss Lee because she submitted a petition to remove Pi Han-yul from school. The thugs charge at Miss Lee with baseball bats, but before they can reach her, a bat is suddenly kicked away. Ga-min, his friends, and even his mother fight back. The delinquents delinquents are no match for them. As Miss Lee is about to call the police, Min Hwan suddenly pulls out a gun and aims at her. Ga-min tries to stop him, but he is too late. At the last second, his mother steps in front of Miss Lee and takes the hit to her head. She collapses, and Ga-min rushes to her side. Panicked, Pork Gun-yeub tells him that the attack was retaliation for the petition against Pai Hanu. He warns Ga-min not to seek revenge recklessly. Pai Hanu has 3 powerful bodyguards, all senior students. They won't be easy to defeat. But Ga-min refuses to listen. The next day he storms into Pai Hanu's hideout, demanding a fight. He is immediately overwhelmed. Pai Hanu watches as his bodyguards take turns beating Ga-min, leaving him on the ground. Laughing, Pai Hanu tells them to leave Ga-min barely conscious so he can still visit his mother in the hospital. Ga-min lies there, gasping for air, remembering his uncle's old lesson. If he could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, it meant He takes a deep breath and steadies himself. Slowly he stands up. This time he fights back using a technique his uncle once forbade him from using. With controlled precision, he takes down all 3 bodyguards one by one. Meanwhile, Miss Lee is called into the hall, where the principal scolds her for submitting the petition, claiming she made the school look bad. He demands that she apologize to all students and teachers. Standing at the podium in front of the school, Miss Lee refuses. Instead, she declares her mission to turn Yusung Technical High into a proper school. As she speaks, she recalls a memory. A year ago, a beloved teacher at Yusung Technical had confided in her, saying his greatest wish was to change the school. Soon after, he was murdered in what the police called a random attack. But Miss Lee never believed it was random. She knows there is more to the story. The vice principal rushes to the stage, grabbing the microphone, trying to silence her. At that moment, the gym doors burst open. Ga-min storms in and punches Pai Hanu in front of the entire school. Ga-hanu retaliates, and another brutal fight begins. The students watch in awe as the 2 most powerful fighters clash in the middle of the gym. Ga-min glares at Pai Hanu. "You're just another high school student who can feel pain like anyone else," he says. "The only difference is that you live in an illusion of power." Infuriated by Ga-min's words, Pai Hanu attacks even more aggressively. The entire school watches in stunned silence, witnessing someone stand up to Pai Hanu without hesitation. Meanwhile, Kim Chul, the leader of the 3 fighters Ga-min had previously defeated, is at the hospital taking care of his sick grandfather. The elderly man encourages him to find success through education. While helping his grandfather, Kim Chul unexpectedly runs into Ga-min, who is there visiting his injured mother. Seeing Ga-min's bruises, Kim Chul quickly realizes that he had confronted Pai Hanu to protect his mother. Understanding Ga-min's feelings, Kim Chul apologizes. Ga-min, curious, asks why Kim Chul continues to follow Pai Hanu's orders despite wanting to study. He had noticed that Kim Chul carried a vocabulary notebook, proving his hidden desire to learn. Kim Chul sighs and explains that studying won't guarantee him a future, but being loyal to Pai Hanu could lead to a stable job in a gang-affiliated company. Since he is already in his final year, he feels it's too late for him to change paths. Just then, Kim Chul receives a call from his accomplice, Lee Dae-chul, warning him to hide because gang members are looking for him. Before he can react, 2 gang members show up at the hospital entrance. Sensing trouble, Kim Chul quickly pretends not to know Ga-min and willingly lets himself be taken away. After they leave, Kim Chul's phone rings again. Ga-min picks it up and sees it's Kim Chul's grandfather calling. Instead of ignoring the call, Ga-min goes to the hospital room to help the elderly man answer quiz questions. The grandfather is delighted to have answered 4 questions correctly, 1 more than the previous day. It's a small but meaningful achievement. The next morning, shocking news spreads across the city. A male body has been found, stabbed to death. The police identify the prime suspect as a high school senior. Ga-min, Seon, and the others immediately recognize the person caught on CTV. It's Kim Chul. The police begin their investigation and question Ga-min about his encounter with Kim Chul at the hospital the night before. Ga-min confirms he saw him, but refuses to believe that Kim Chul is the murderer. After school, Ga-min appears lost in thought. Sihon notices his troubled expression and asks what's wrong. Ga-min admits that he doesn't believe Kim Chul is guilty. The study group gathers and starts looking into the case. They discover that since Pai Hanu took control, homicides committed by high school students have increased, while adult crime rates have mysteriously decreased. Sihon explains that minors receive lighter sentences and first-time offenders can be paroled within a few years. The gang exploits this by making young offenders take the fall, promising them jobs in a gang-owned construction company once they are released. The group realizes that Kim Chul is likely being used as a scapegoat, but they have no solid proof. That evening, Ga-min is suddenly stopped by Lee Dae-chul, who insists that Kim Chul is not the killer. Before he can explain further, they are attacked by gang members. Ga-min, frustrated by the interference, knocks out the thugs with a single punch. Badly injured, Lee Dae-chul confesses that he saw the gang leaders cleaning a bloodstained knife. Ga-min rushes back to the study group and shares this new information. They now have a lead. The real murder weapon is still hidden somewhere. Determined to find the knife, Ga-min, Lee-jun, and Ji-woo come up with a risky plan. They infiltrate the gang's Talent Development Institute, while Se-hun and Hee-won monitor the situation from outside using a drone. Wearing uniforms from another school, Ga-min and his team successfully sneak inside the building. However, things quickly go wrong. They get separated while avoiding Pai Han-woo's subordinates. Ga-min ends up on the rooftop, accidentally locking himself in. Lee-jun engages in a fight with a gang guard, trying to buy time for Ji-woo to continue searching for the knife. Ji-woo sneaks into an office and begins searching the drawers. The room is dimly lit and the tension is high. She carefully goes through the cabinets, trying not to make any noise. Finally, after searching several drawers, she finds it, the murder weapon, a sharp knife. Her heart pounds as she realizes that this could be the key to proving Kim Chul's innocence. Just as she is about to leave, the door creaks open, and a gang member steps inside. Ji-woo quickly hides under the desk, holding her breath. She waits, listening to the gang member's footsteps as he moves around the room. She watches his shadow stretch across the floor, hoping he will leave soon. After what feels like forever, he turns toward the door. Thinking the danger has passed, Ji-woo slowly begins to crawl out from under the desk. But just as she moves, the gang member stops and looks down. Their eyes meet. Ji-woo immediately bolts toward the exit, clutching the knife tightly. The gang member shouts, alerting others in the building. Lee-jun, hearing the commotion, abandons his fight and rushes to help her. Meanwhile, Ga-min, still trapped on the rooftop, tries to break down the locked door, desperate to rejoin his friends. Downstairs, Pai Han-woo continues his meeting with his top fighters. He announces that Kim Chul has officially joined the gang, handing him a bag of money. He praises Kim Chul's loyalty, using him as an example to inspire the others. Just then, the police arrive, led by Detective Na. As they storm the room, Kim Chul stuns everyone by confessing to the crime. Meanwhile, Ji-woo, trapped between two gang members, tries to fight back but is quickly overpowered. A sharp blow to the back of her head knocks her unconscious. At the same time, Min-hwan destroys Si-hyun and Hee-won's drone, cutting off their ability to track the others. Now they have no idea what's happening inside the building. Unaware of his friend's situation, Ga-min desperately searches for a way to get down from the rooftop. Suddenly, his phone rings. It's Miss Lee, reminding him about his tutoring session. To avoid suspicion, Ga-min quickly grabs his workbook from his bag, but in his rush he accidentally drops it off the edge of the building. He watches in horror as it lands right in the hands of a gang leader below. At the same time, he sees Ji-woo being dragged away by the gang members. Panic surges through him as he slams against the locked door, trying to break it down. One of the gang members, eyeing Ji-woo with bad intentions, plans to take her away alone. Just as he is about to force her into a car, Kim Chul suddenly appears and demands that they let her go. The gangsters laugh, mocking him for showing up after having already agreed to take the fall for the murder. Kim Chul recalls how the officer handling the case had interrogated him, sensing inconsistencies in his story. He remembers how Pai Han-woo had pressured him to confess, promising him the best lawyer and full medical care for his grandfather. Han-noop had even handed him a lawyer's card before tossing his vocabulary notebook into the trash. But as the officer kept questioning him, Kim Chul started to doubt his decision. He remembered his grandfather's wish for him to become a better person. He thought about Ga-min's words, inviting him to study together. In that moment, he decided he couldn't go through with the lie. Now, standing in front of the gang, he refuses to let them take Ji-woo away. But Kim Chul is no match for the gang member, who quickly knocks him down. Just when it seems hopeless, Lee Dae-chul and his allies arrive, ready to back him up. Inside the car, Ji-woo regains consciousness, her head still throbbing from the attack. Seeing Kim Chul being beaten, she joins the fight. Despite their combined efforts, the gang member proves too strong. That is, until Ga-min finally arrives, wielding a pair of nunchaku. The gang member scoffs at him, revealing his scar-covered torso and preparing for another attack. The two clash, and at first Ga-min is knocked to the ground. The gang member laughs, believing he has won, but Ga-min slowly gets back up, dusting himself off with a disappointed sigh. "I thought you'd be stronger," he mutters. Using one of his uncle's forbidden techniques, Ga-min delivers a devastating punch that sends the gang member flying, securing victory. As Ga-min turns to Kim Chul, the gang member, still conscious, reaches for the murder weapon. Before he can grab it, Ji-woo kicks him away, knocking him out completely. At that moment, Se-hun and Hee-won arrive, carrying makeshift rescue equipment. Ga-min suddenly remembers that his workbook is still with the gang leader who picked it up earlier. Without hesitation, he sprints off to retrieve it. Just then, a police officer intercepts the gang leader. Having already gathered evidence that he is the real murderer, the officer demands his surrender. Still, the gang leader refuses to admit guilt. As the officer applies pressure, the leader reaches for a hidden knife in an attempt to launch a sneak attack. But before he can strike, Ga-min, who had been watching from behind, knocks him out with a swift, precise blow. With the gang members defeated and arrested, the study group finally returns to school, but they have little time to rest. Their midterm exams are right around the corner. After days of intense studying, they finally sit for the tests. Once the exams are over, the students excitedly compare their answers with Sehyun, who is known as the best student in the class. However, Ga-min quickly realizes that his answers are different from everyone else's. A sense of dread washes over him. Later that evening, Ga-min's mother, recently discharged from the hospital, calls Miss Lee. She expresses concern over Ga-min's mood, explaining that he always becomes unusually quiet whenever exam results are about to be released. Miss Lee reassures her, saying that Ga-min is spending time with his study group. Sehyun notices Ga-min's distress and tries to comfort him, but before Ga-min can respond, his phone rings. The call is from Lee Dae-chul. Kim Chul's grandfather is in critical condition. The elderly man, a lifelong lover of learning, is determined to complete one last test before his passing. Kim Chul rushes to the hospital, but on his way, he is intercepted by gang members. By the time he arrives, he is battered and bleeding. Inside the hospital room, Ga-min is already there, sitting beside the old man, helping him complete the test. Despite his pain, the grandfather smiles, proud to answer each question. After marking his final answer, he takes a deep breath and closes his eyes for the last time. Kim Chul, overwhelmed with emotion, falls to his knees. Ga-min and the others attend the funeral, standing beside him. As they reflect on the old man's wisdom, Ga-min assures Kim Chul that there is joy in learning, and he too will find it someday. Moved by his words, Kim Chul opens his grandfather's vocabulary notebook and expresses his gratitude to Ga-min for fulfilling his grandfather's final wish. He vows to take responsibility for his own future. After the funeral, the midterm results are released. As expected, Secheon secures first place, while the others also show significant improvements. To everyone's surprise, Ga-min climbs over 10 positions in the rankings, a huge achievement for him. With their improved results, Miss Lee approaches the principal, reminding him of his promise to convene a disciplinary committee against Pai Han-ut. Shortly after, a notice about Pai Han-ut's disciplinary hearing is posted at the school entrance. Now, taking his role more seriously, Kim Chul, who has been assigned to help maintain order in the school, stands at the campus gate, blocking Pai Han-ut's car from entering. "No vehicles allowed on campus," he states firmly. Pai Han-ut glares at him, his expression dark and full of anger. Then, shifting his gaze to Ga-min and the study group, he shoots them a murderous look before going away. Humiliated by the way he was treated, Pai Han-ut seethes with rage. That same day, Yusung High School erupts into chaos as one of the most terrifying fights in its history breaks out. Pai Han-ut's revenge has begun. A year ago, a similar disciplinary hearing had been scheduled for Han-ut. The person who had requested it was none other than Miss Oh Jung-hwa, a teacher who had once believed in him. Han-yu's father, the real mastermind behind the school's gang activities, had confronted him about the hearing. However, Han-yu, full of arrogance, had assured his father that he would handle everything. Jung-hwa had tried to steer Han-yu away from his father's influence, but he had assumed she was using him to build her own reputation. As a result, he had ordered his men to get rid of her. On that tragic day, Jung-hwa had shielded her son Jeon-yob from a fatal stab wound, sacrificing herself in the process. The real culprit had never been caught. The attacker had been a puppet, taking orders from Han-un. After her death, Pai Han-ut had only grown more ruthless. That was when he created the ranking app, encouraging students to fight to increase their ranks, effectively turning Yusong into his own personal training ground for his father's gang. Now history threatens to repeat itself. Ms. Lee walks home late at night when the sound of a motorcycle sends a chill down her spine. Fortunately, it's only Jeon-yob. He pleads with her to cancel the disciplinary hearing, warning her that she might suffer the same fate as his mother. That's when Miss Lee realizes the truth. Jeon-yob is Jung-hwa's son, and his mother's real killer has never been brought to justice. Han-ul had orchestrated the entire attack. Meanwhile, the vice principal meets with Han-ul's father, admitting his failure to suppress Miss Lee's influence. Han-nup interrupts their conversation and assures his father that he has everything under control. The next morning, false rumors about Ga-min's study group flood social media. The posts claim that the study group has been trespassing on private property, attacking staff and stealing school uniforms from other institutions to disguise their identities. Soon, YouTubers and reporters arrive at Yusung, eager to cover the gang training scandal. Seeing the girls surrounded by cameras, Lee Jun deliberately causes a distraction, leading the crowd away from them. Using the scandal to his advantage, the vice principal issues an ultimatum to Miss Lee. Either she cancels Han-yu's disciplinary hearing, or the entire study group will be expelled. If the study group is disbanded, she will also lose her job. The weight of the decision crushes her. Ga-min apologizes for causing trouble, but Miss Lee refuses to blame them. They had only been trying to protect Kim Chul. However, she warns them to stay out of danger from now on. No matter what happens, they must not interfere, especially Ga-min. Uncertain of what to do, the group tries to process everything. Suddenly, Kim Chul notices a new notification on the ranking app. Hanu has announced that the top-ranked student in the next hour will receive a cash prize of 1 million won. Within seconds, students across the school go wild, attacking each other in a frenzied battle for the prize. Sehyeon is struck on the head with a milk carton. Shocked, he turns to see that the culprit is a student who had always been deeply focused on his studies. Even he has succumbed to the madness. Shaken by what he's witnessing, Sehyeon walks away, dejected. Gamin follows him, trying to console him. At that moment, Sehyeon finally breaks down. What's the point of studying hard and getting into college, he asks, if the world outside is just as sick as this school? Before Gamin can respond, Sehyeon's phone rings. He answers it, his face pale, and rushes off. Moments later, Gamin receives a message calling him to the study group's room. There, he finds Hanup and Minhwan waiting for him. Hanup smirks. "No matter what you do, people only believe what they see," he says. "Right now, the whole world thinks you're a gang leader. Your study group? They're chasing a dream that will never come true. But if you join me, I'll give them exactly what they want. You can all study in peace. Just convince Miss Lee to cancel the hearing." As Hanun leaves, his followers storm the study group's room, destroying everything inside. Gamin clenches his fists, but remembers his promise to Miss Lee not to fight until the disciplinary hearing is resolved. He stands there, helpless, as their study room is torn apart. Meanwhile, Sehyeon arrives at a construction site, where he sees his father arguing with a co-worker. The man accuses Sehyeon of being a delinquent, spreading the rumors from school. Sehyeon watches in disbelief as his father, despite everything, defends him. When they sit down to talk, his father scolds him but listens quietly when Sehyeon says, "I'll drop out of school and start working to help you." Gamin, having overheard the conversation, realizes that the study group is falling apart. Elsewhere, Jiwoo is subjected to cruel gossip. Students whisper about her brother being in juvenile detention, suggesting that delinquency must run in her family. Furious, Heewon lashes out at them, defending Jiwoo. However, before Jiwoo can process it, Heewon's parents arrive, pulling her away. Just like that, another member of the study group is gone. Gamin returns home, exhausted. His mother notices his distress and gently asks what's wrong. "The study group is falling apart," he admits. "All I wanted was for us to study together." His mother sighs. "I only let you stay at Yusung because I saw how happy you were with your friends. If you give up now, what was it all for?" That night, Gamin sits in the wrecked study room, staring at their ruined materials. He remembers the friendships he built, the laughter, the challenges, the victories. His eyes land on his favorite motto: "I will create my own opportunities, even in difficult situations." The next morning, Sehyeon arrives at the construction site ready to start working. To his shock, Gamin is already there. "I'll help you finish faster so we can study together," Gamin says. Sehyeon hesitates, but when his father arrives, he kneels and thanks him for his hard work, promising to make their lives better. For the first time, his father sees a new determination in his son's eyes. Reinvigorated, Gamin and Sehyeon visit Heewon's parents. Sehyeon introduces himself as the top student in the school and explains the misunderstanding. He assures them that Heewon will have a bright future. Gamin then presents a basket of blueberries, claiming they boost brain activity. The parents, impressed by their sincerity, allow Heewon to return. Next, they visit Jiwoo, who is working at a convenience store. Heewon follows her around, refusing to leave. "You're strong, Jiwoo," she insists. "You never bow your head to anyone, and one day, the right person will see how amazing you are." Jiwoo finally smiles. Lastly, they message Lee Jun, who had been left out of everything. Slowly but surely, the study group starts to come back together. At school, Miss Lee stands firm in her decision. The vice principal warns her, but she refuses to back down. "I'm not just protecting the study group," she says. "I'm protecting all of Yusung's students." That morning, Gamin and his study group returned to school together, stronger than ever, ready to fight for their place. They were determined to bring Hanno to the disciplinary hearing, even though they knew it could result in their own expulsion as well. Kim Chul joined them and mentioned what had happened the previous year. The teacher who had tried to do the same thing had ended up being murdered. Hanu considered himself the king of the school and would not quietly accept being expelled from his kingdom. Jiwoo wanted to strike first, but Sehyeon reminded everyone to be cautious as Miss Lee's safety was at stake. Jae-min agreed and decided that protecting Miss Lee until the disciplinary hearing took place would be their top priority. Meanwhile, the inspector advised Miss Lee to keep a low profile for a few days, at least until the hearing, but she refused to leave the school. If she ran away, the students would have no one to trust. She was determined to stand by her students until the very end. On the eve of the disciplinary hearing, the vice principal called Miss Lee for a private meeting, which seemed suspicious. The inspector waited for her at the school gate and warned her that it could be a trap, but she was determined. She might be able to get clues to help with the hearing. As agreed, the vice principal was waiting for her. He confessed that the school was merely a front for Hanu's father's money laundering scheme. Since he lacked the courage to stand up to the system, he was passing this information on to her to use in the hearing. Ms. Lee revealed that she was well prepared for the hearing the next day. With testimonies from student victims and statements from threatened teachers, she was confident she would win. The vice principal gave her an enigmatic look, and just as Miss Lee was checking her recording, the light suddenly went out. The vice principal fled, leaving her alone in the dark. As soon as she stepped into the hallway, she was immediately surrounded by Min Hwan, Hanul, and two more henchmen. Min Hwan approached and snatched the phone from her hand. Miss Lee asked if they were really going to hurt her, and after Hanul confirmed it, she told him to reconsider, as this was his last chance. It turned out that the officer had given Miss Lee a hidden recorder. She had turned what was supposed to be a trap for her into a trap for them, making herself the very evidence against Han-un and his father. Outside, the officer was anxious and about to storm the location, but one of his corrupt colleagues hit him with a taser, bringing him down. It was all part of Han-un's plan. He had known everything from the beginning. Miss Lee thought all hope was lost, but suddenly, the PA system echoed with Hee-won's mocking voice, shouting that they were all screwed. Just then, the study group arrived to rescue their teacher. They had planned to stay close and protect Miss Lee 24 hours a day, taking turns to always be nearby, whether by following her or requesting long tutoring sessions as an excuse. Gamin ordered the delinquents to back off from his teacher, who needed to rest and stay healthy because she had a special event to attend tomorrow. Gamin told his group to take Miss Lee to a safe place while he stayed behind to make sure Hanul couldn't pass. Min Hwan and the henchmen immediately chase after them. Ji-woo and Kim Chul then stepped in to confront the henchmen. However, Min Hwan managed to corner Miss Lee, and surprisingly, the one who stepped forward to face him was Sehon, allowing Lee Jun to take her to safety. When they reached the lobby, someone suddenly shouted Lee Jun's name. It was his childhood best friend, the one who had abandoned him to join the gang. Lee Jun urged Miss Lee to run, or the others would scold him for failing to get her out of the school. Meanwhile, Pi Hanul admitted his desire to fight Gamin, and the two lunged at each other, kicking off the decisive battle. Lee Jun struggled in his fight, shaken by the fact that he had to face his childhood best friend, the one who had abandoned him to become Hanyu's lapdog. Kim Chul, on the other hand, discovered that his opponent was the son of the real culprit behind the murder he had been forced to take the blame for. Now his opponent sought revenge for his father, who had been imprisoned. During the fight, Kim Chul ended up with a broken arm. Ji-woo also faced difficulties as her opponent was much larger and stronger than her, barely feeling her strikes. Sehon was in the most danger. Besides having no fighting experience, he was being chased by Min Hwan, who was wildly shooting at him. The two leaders, Gamin and Hanu, exchanged fierce blows, making it the most evenly matched fight so far. Suddenly, Hanu landed a powerful strike that sent Gamin flying, blaming him for everything that was happening. Seeing how his childhood friend had changed into such a horrible person, Lee Jun screamed in frustration. Remembering how close they used to be, he finally accepted that this guy was no longer the friend he once knew. Lee Jun decided to fight for real. He blocked the first knife attack, but his opponent skillfully switched hands and stabbed him straight in the chest. Ji-woo was adapting to her heavier opponent, and as she struck him, they tumbled into the room where Kim Chul was struggling due to his broken arm. She quickly took down Kim Chul's opponent. Now it was a 2-on-2 battle, the gangsters against the study group duo. Meanwhile, Miss Lee grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed the door open, managing to escape. Lee Jun pulled the knife from his own chest and furiously attacked his opponent, landing multiple strikes and defeating him. Even though Ji-woo was a girl without much physical strength and Kim Chul had a broken arm, the study group duo was far more synchronized and fought exceptionally well together. Realizing they were losing, their opponents tried to target Kim Chul's broken arm, but he seized the opportunity to take his enemy down with a jiu-jitsu move, breaking his arm in revenge. Seeing Ji-woo still struggling against her heavy opponent, Kim Chul shouted that she fought well but thought too much. She just needed to keep it simple. She remembered receiving the same advice from Lee Jun about how she studied, and now understood what he had meant. She focused, and despite her opponent's weight, executed her special judo move, using his own weight to increase the impact and knock him out. When Min Hwan ran out of bullets, Sehon bravely stepped up to fight him hand-to-hand. It was revealed that he had secretly sought out Gamin's mother for training. As Gamin had helped him so much, now it was his turn to protect Gamin and the group. Following her teachings, he adapted to the opponent's speed and struck in the right spots without needing brute force. He completely dominated his opponent. Finally, Sehon executed his ultimate move, the lightning punch, leaving Min Hwan in disbelief that he had lost to a nerd. Now only the main fight remained. Gamin and Hanu continued their intense battle, neither backing down. Seizing an opening, Hanu delivered a devastating knee strike, sending Gamin crashing through a wall. Furious at being underestimated, Gamin realized that Gamin wasn't even fighting seriously, he was just stalling for time until Miss Lee escaped. Hanu then revealed that he hadn't chased after her because he had already stationed several henchmen outside, waiting to capture her. Fearing for his teacher's life, Gamin got serious and unleashed a forbidden technique, the point-blank punch, making Hanu cough up blood. Yet he remained standing. Gamin was not about to give up. He propelled himself off the wall, moving with lightning speed, and landed every strike with perfect precision. Using forbidden technique number 10, concussive impact, he delivered the final blow that brought Hanu to his knees. Gamin tries to run to save Miss Lee but collapses from exhaustion. At the same time, outside the school, a high-pitched scream rings out. Hee-won arrives, bringing student monitors and former gang members who now stand with Miss Lee. A battle erupts, but this time the students fight together to protect their teacher. The next morning, the disciplinary hearing takes place. With overwhelming evidence, Pai-han-ul is officially expelled. As he leaves, Miss Lee tells him, "You had good people by your side, but you never valued them. Now you have to take responsibility." Just then, the police arrive. Using the recordings Miss Lee obtained, they arrest Pai-han-ul for his involvement in past crimes. As he is taken away, he looks at Ga-min one last time. "Try to change this school," he says. From that day on, the study group is finally able to focus on learning. The school begins to change. The fight ranking app is removed, and discipline is restored. The group gathers in their classroom, sharing their dreams. Lee Jun wants to be a firefighter, Sehan a software developer, Ji-woo a teacher. Ga-min, he just wants to get into college. As Miss Lee walks in reminding them of upcoming exams, Ga-min smiles. His fight isn't over, it's just beginning.